Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, I'd now like you all to be upstanding for the arrival of Her Excellency and also the official party. Please be seated. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the official trophy presentation for the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race for 2019. If I could introduce the head table, Matthew Johnson from Tasports, Councillor Anna Reynolds, the Lord Mayor of Hobart, the RYCT Commodore, Tracey Mathews, Her Excellency, the Governor, Kate Warner, Paul Billingham, the CYCA Commodore, the Premier of Tasmania, the Honourable Will Hodgman, and the General Manager of Rolex Australia, Patrick Boutellier. Could I also acknowledge in the audience Senator the Honourable Richard Colbeck, the Federal Minister for Youth and Sport, and his wife Gayleen, who are here with us in the front row. So welcome everyone. I think you can put your hands together because it's been pretty special. And now, to afford everyone a special Tasmanian welcome, I'll call on the Commodore of the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, Tracey Mathews, and remembering that the Royal Yacht Club achieved royal status way back in 1908, so it's one of the oldest yacht clubs in Australia. But please welcome the RYCT Commodore, Tracey Mathews.
Your Excellency, sailors, volunteers, members, friends and families. In late July 1945, a letter was received informing of the intention to conduct a yacht race terminating in Hobart, including a request for cooperation by managing the finish of the race. A response was issued dated 1st of August 1945. This news gladdens our hearts and we will be most happy to cooperate in any way desired. We will certainly take care of the ships and their people upon arrival. And so, the enduring relationship between the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania and the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia began. On behalf of the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, I welcome you here today for the official trophy presentation for the 2019 Rolex Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race, the 75th edition of our great race. From Rani to Ichiban and Comanche, from Captain John Illingworth to Matt Allen, Jim Cooney and Samantha Grant, from 9 entrants in that first race to 157 competitors on the 4 lines on Boxing Day. We've come such a long way in 75 years, but still the race maintains its origins, the spirit of adventure, courage and challenge. Congratulations and thank you to all the owners, skippers and crews. I have loved following your stories, your motivations and your aspirations, from the largest supermaxis to the smallest competitors in the fleet. You are the superstars of this event. And I note that we still have a handful of very hardy competitors out there, so we wish them safe sailing and a successful finish for their race. I would also like to recognise the dedication and passion of our volunteers who work around the clock and without whom this event would not happen. With the bumper fleet and very low retirements this year, they have really had to step up and deliver. Thank you to Dave Jordan and the race committee, Mick Hocking and the patrol boat crews, Alistair Douglas and the radio room, Peter Holmes and the finishing box, Peter and Judy Martin and the liaison centre teams, the Glenorchy Rotary Club, the radio relay vessel JBW, along with the Young Endeavour. Thank you to the international jury and to the media teams and crews for taking our story to the world. Thank you also to the staff of the RYCT and the CYCA under the guidance of Daryl Potter and Eddie Moore. Your teams, particularly sailing managers Justine Kirchin and Nick Hutton, worked tirelessly alongside our volunteers to deliver a world-class event. To our local sponsors and stakeholders, including the Tasmanian Government, the Hobart City Council and Tasports, thank you. And of course, our major sponsor Rolex for their continuing support of our great race. I would like to specifically acknowledge two individuals who have been instrumental to the delivery of the finishing end of this event. Firstly, the General Manager of the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, Daryl Potter, who will be leaving us in January after 5.5 years with the club. Daryl, thank you for your contribution to the success of this event. Secondly, after 22 years as the finishing coordinator of the Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race, Robert Biddy Badanack is retiring from the role this year. Biddy has worked tirelessly and passionately to ensure the smooth running and coordination for the finish of the event. Thank you, Biddy, from all of us. Commodore Paul Billingham and I agreed several years ago that we would work together to ensure that the 75th edition of the Rolex Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race was a celebration for our clubs, the competitors, the volunteers, and for everyone who loves this great race. You have all stepped up to the challenge and delivered the action on the water. Now it is time to celebrate. Enjoy this afternoon's presentation. Thank you and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Commodore Mathews. And each year we always look forward to the personalised message and reflection from Her Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, the Governor of Tasmania, Professor Kate Warner, AC.
Thank you so much for inviting my husband Dick and me to the presentation of trophies for the 2019 Rolex Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race. Can I begin by paying my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we stand, the Muanina people. I lament the fact that there are no survivors of the Muanina who were driven from their land by the colonial settlers. But we can be very grateful that in the descendants of Manalagena's daughters from the Bass Strait Islands, we have a thriving Tasmanian contemporary Aboriginal community who have survived invasion and dispossession and who continue to maintain their identity, their culture, and their Indigenous rights. I think it's really wonderful that this year we have, as I understand it, the first Indigenous Australian crew to officially sail in the race. So the 9 First Nations people in the 11-person crew of the Tribal Warrior, which includes a 64-year-old elder from La Perouse and a 40-year-old Redfern woman. Tribal Warrior crossed the finishing line just before midday today. So it's a great privilege. It's really a great privilege to be here for the 75th presentation ceremony. But as we celebrate the race and the new year, this year I think our thoughts should be with those who are at risk from the unprecedented December bushfires here in Tasmania, in South Australia, in Victoria and New South Wales, and in particularly with the family of Samuel McPaul, who died yesterday in the Green Valley blaze, the third volunteer firefighter to die within 2 weeks. So like so many other Tasmanians, I follow the Sydney Hobart Yacht Race with great interest every year, from the always spectacular start on Boxing Day to the end of the race here in Hobart. In fact, a childhood memory of mine is going aboard a Sydney Hobart yacht, Boongown, in the early 60s, a small yacht skippered by Dr. Jim Molesworth, who was a Sydney friend of my parents. And I also remember the embarrassment of my father falling from Boongown into Constitution Dock after too much New Year merriment. And when I recounted this story at my first Sydney Hobart Yacht Race presentation some 5 years ago, to my surprise, I then met son of Dr. Jim Molesworth here on the stage receiving a trophy. So the race has changed dramatically since the 1960s, and indeed since that first cruise, which turned into a race between 4 yachts in 1945. Of course, the 75th race is a milestone with a big fleet of 157 yachts and with just 3 retirements. So congratulations to all competitors. As usual, on Boxing Day, we watched the always spectacular start, and we watched to see who would be first out the heads. So this year it was InfoTrack, fulfilling Christian Beck's dream after an amazing start. And it was a really great race between the 5 maxis. And while Comanche soon surged to the lead swapped overnight, and Scallywag was in the lead for much of Friday. Comanche rounded Tasman Island first, but had some nervous moments when something went awry with the rudder, and then again when the wind dropped out with just 3 nautical miles to go. But a Zephyr arrived to get it to the finishing line first. InfoTrack followed, and Wild Oats just pipped Scallywag, which had a problem with a shark wrapped around the rudder near Tasman Light. So the beautiful, sleek 66-footer Pocket Maxi Alive was 6 across the line. The best of the rest, with another great race after last year's big handicap win. And reading Phil Turner's description of sailing at high speed through a pitch-black night with no moon and water spraying over the front of the deck, it sounds to me quite terrifying rather than exciting. So the rest of the crew experienced a real mix of conditions, leaving the handicap wide open on Saturday night. But by Sunday night, it was clear that it would be likely to be Matt Allen's Ichiban, handicap winner in 2017, which after 0 breeze at Tasman Island, and after being buzzed rounding Cape Rowell by a locally owned jet provost, it eventually caught the sea breeze up the river. So Dick and I have had a really wonderful time walking around the docks and being part of the welcoming crowd. Sipping a drink at Mach 1 on Sunday evening, we watched a group of yachts with red, white and blue spinnakers flying to the finishing line, including the really beautiful Kealoha 2, line honours winner of the 1971 race. And this morning we admired another grand veteran, the 115-year-old Katwinchar, bought on Gumtree and restored by Billy Barry Cotter. A special mention too to SWD Kale, skippered by David Pescott and crewed by sailors with disabilities, which crossed the line, I think, 66 out of 157. We both want to congratulate all of the sailors who have stepped up to compete in the Rolex Sydney Hobart, wherever they have finished, and to those too that are still at sea. To Rolex, sponsor of the race since 2002, I thank you for your support for this event. And last, but certainly not least, I must thank the organiser, the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania for their supporting role, and all the volunteers and staff who have made this year's Rolex Sydney to Hobart such a great success. It really is an enormous undertaking, as Tracey has mentioned, and I congratulate you all on a job well done. Thank you again for inviting me to participate in this wonderful event.
Her Excellency will now remain to present the first round of trophies. And for those receiving trophies, can I remind you, whether you come from that side or this side, we'd ask you to leave on the right-hand side of the stage as we face towards you. So Her Excellency now to present the first round of trophies. And ladies and gentlemen, the first yacht out of Sydney Heads, the Jack Brooklyn Memorial Trophy and Cannon, second over the line, and third in IRC Division 0, Infotrack, Christian Beck. Representing the Greenwich Flying Squadron, the former Loyal, who took line honours in 2011 and 2016, and Brad Kellett, the Navigator of Infotrack, in his first Rolex Sydney Hobart as a Navigator. What a splendid performance. CYC Director Brad Kellett accepting. And also I'll ask Patrick Boutillier very shortly to come up for the line honours, but a great effort for Infotrack, who went so close to that first place. Thank you, Brad. Third over the line, a very famous name, Wild Oats 11, the Oatley family, a 9-time line honours winner. And David Kellett, I believe, will be accepting on behalf of the Oatley family. Dave Kellett has just completed his 46th Rolex Sydney Hobart, his 20th as head of the radio operations for the race, and of course was a magnificent competitor in his first 26 races. So Dave Kellett very appropriately accepting on behalf of the Oatley family, because he also runs the dock at Woolwich, where Wild Oats is based. And now for first yacht due south of Tasman Island, the F&J Livingston and Replica Trophy, and line honours, the J.H. Illingworth Trophy and Replica and Cannon, Rolex Yachtmaster Timepiece, Comanche Jim Cooney, and escorted by his son James. Patrick Boutillier, the General Manager from Rolex Australia, will present the magnificent Rolex Yachtmaster as well. Jim, I know you've got to catch a flight. We'll just get the photo opportunities. I know you've got to catch a flight, but you particularly wanted to say a few words once we get those photos. Done.
Thanks, Gordon. Thanks very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Premier, Tracey and Paul. Thank you all very much. I won't keep you long. A long afternoon ahead of you, but I did want to say just briefly what an absolute honour it is to have won this race for a variety of reasons. The 75th is a milestone. It's fantastic to be a part of it. But to see this many people in this race, 157 yachts, and almost all of them home by now, a few still out there, but a fantastic achievement. Everybody home safely. And it's a great race to be a part of. And this year at the front of the fleet with 500 footers crossing the line within 2 hours of each other, and certainly keeping us honest all the way. I think this race will go down for a few decades as it's a pretty exciting one, and one that was very, very hard fought and a challenging and difficult race to win. So all of those things combined, it's a really great honour to have been in this race at all, let alone to take home the line on it. So thank you all very much, Paul and Tracey, and have a great new year, everybody. Thanks so much.
Very much appreciated, Jim. It wasn't part of the schedule, but I think you made some very pertinent points there, and we all appreciate that. Thank you very much, Jim and James, and also Her Excellency and Patrick Boutillier. I'd now like to call on Tracey Mathews again, the RYCT Commodore, to present the next round of trophies. The first female skipper. This is the Jane Tait Memorial Trophy and half model. And it goes to active again, Stephanie Kerrin. Active Again is actually named after the boat Active, which Jane Tait skippered in her first race as a female skipper. And this is the second victory for Stephanie. She was also successful a couple of years ago as first female skipper in Decadence. And her dad also sailed in the 50th Rolex Sydney Hobart. So what a family dynasty we have there. First IRC Division 7, third ORCI Division 5, second Veterans Division, Komatsu Azuro from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. Shane Kearns in his 16th Rolex Sydney Hobart. Komatsu Azuro, a sister ship of the 69 winner Morning Cloud, Sir Edward Heath. And Shane, who's just been a prolific performer with this beautiful boat, Komatsu Azuro, taking 3 trophies out in the milestone race, so deservedly. Well done, Shane Kearns, Komatsu Azuro. No speeches, Shane. Third in PHS Division 1, the CYCA Trophy, Malagai, Murray Owen and Jenny Kings, representing the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. They also supported several charities on the way down, including cystic fibrosis and Black Dog, and they raced against a cyclist, Andrew Mackay, who left at the same time, but ran into some smoke, I believe. But Jenny Kings is coming up, the co-owner of Malagai and partner of Murray Owen. Congratulations, Jenny. Malagai, third in PHS Division 1, hotly contested. Second in PHS Division 1, and it goes to Helsel 3, a famous Australian name, Paul Mara and Adrian van der Riet. Helsel 3 competing in its 16th Rolex Sydney Hobart and representing the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. And there were 4 members of the van der Riet family on board this year. Great effort to finish second in PHS Division 1. First in PHS Division 1, the Ranza Trophy and the CYC Trophy, and it goes to Wax Lyrical Les Goodridge. Representing the Cruising Yacht Club, they were first in PHS Division last year as well. Les in his 11th race, the skipper and the navigator, and 4 females on board. Dinah Eagle in her 12th, Julie Owens, her 8th, Louise Stephen in her 14th, and Francesca Levericus in her 2nd race. So a great effort there by Wax Lyrical, Les Goodridge. Third in PHS Division 2 goes to Quetzalcoatl from the CYC. Anthony Bruce, James Lee Warner and Anto Sweetapple. And Anto skippering in his 13th Sydney Hobart, a 9th for Lee Warner and an 8th for Anthony Bruce. Quetzalcoatl, you'll never miss her at the dock, representing the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, 3rd PHS Division 2. Second in PHS Division 2, Moody Boys, Trevor Richardson from the Royal Geelong Yacht Club. Moody Boys was skippered by Trevor's son Stuart, second in PHS Division 2. And a great result there for the Royal Geelong Yacht Club. Always has been a great supporter of the Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. Third in Corinthian PHS, Mil Sabads, or Mi Sabor, Robert Frayne from the Royal Motor Yacht Club, the Sydney 35. Robert Frayne, the skipper and co-navigator. They had a crew of 9, 3rd in Corinthian PHS and the 3rd Sydney 38. So 2 trophies there for Robert Frayne. First in Corinthian PHS, the York Family Trophy and the CYC Trophy, and first in PHS Division 2, I'm a Lizard, Bruce Watson. They won also in PHS Division 2 in 2016. They lost a mast in 2017. Bruce jury-rigged to Flinders Island and loved the place so much he bought a house there on Flinders Island. And on the way back, they're going to call in with his 6-strong French crew and show everyone what a marvellous place Flinders Island is. But congratulations, Bruce Watson, I'm a Lizard, from the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron. The first Sydney 38 and the 3rd Corinthian IRC, and it goes to GOAT, Mitchell Gordon, Tony Clift and Daniel Hawkins. Also on board, former first-grade rugby league player Bruce Foy, a winning skipper in his own right, but GOAT from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, a prolific winner, launched back in 2004. Congratulations, GOAT, Mitchell Gordon, Tony Clift and Daniel Hawkins. Now we go to 3rd. I think at that point we might get Matthew up for the next round of... So Tracey, you've done a wonderful job there. You've been working overtime. So please thank the Commodore. And now I'm going to call on the past Commodore of the RYCT, Matthew Johnson from Tas Sports, who's going to present the next round of trophies. Matthew is the Executive General Manager of Growth at Tas Sports. 3rd ORCI Division 4, 2nd Corinthian PHS, 3rd IRC Division 5, 2nd Sydney 38 and 2nd Corinthian IRC, and it goes to Saint-Cont, Kimberly Jagger. No less than 5 trophies for Saint-Cont. A total of 140 races, Hobart races in the crew. Kimberly Jagger, he's 34th. Anne Lawrence, the Navigator, her 15th. John Whitfield, his 25th. And Bob Thomas, his 27th Rolex Sydney Hobart. So it was a fantastic crew, and they've come away with 5 trophies. Are we surprised? No. Great work there by Saint-Cont, Kimberly Jagger. His 34th race on his belt. First in IRC Division 6, first in ORCI Division 5, and first in Corinthian IRC, and it's Willie Smith's philosopher, Sean Tiedemann. The Sydney 36 CR from the Derwent Sailing Squadron here in Hobart. And Sean, of course, is the General Manager of the Derwent Sailing Squadron. So he's on the job 24/7. And taking also appropriately the Graham Frizzle Freeman Memorial Trophy and those other trophies, so 3 in all, and Graham Frizzle Freeman, a proud Tasmanian, and also a winner in his own right, the late Graham Frizzle Freeman, a great character of the race. So congratulations to Sean. Third in IRC Division 7, second in the Grand Veterans Division, a famous name, the SNS 47, Love and War, Simon Kurtz. Simon has just completed his 19th Rolex Sydney Hobart, the son of the great and late Peter Kurtz. And what a crew they had. Lindsay May, the Navigator, 47 Hobart, Steve McCullum, 24, Peter Sheldrick, 28, Eric Adriaths, 29, Michael Heenan, 21. Philip Kurtz was on board, and so was David Poes, who won the Rolex Sydney Hobart on Piccolo in 1976 from Lake Macquarie. So congratulations to Love and War and Simon Kurtz. second in IRC Division 7, third in the Veterans Division, and first in the Grand Veterans Division. They crossed the finishing line yesterday afternoon. Cat Wincher, 115 years young. Bill Barry Cotter. And it looks as though Kendall, his younger brother, who's also past the 70-year mark. You don't mind me saying that, Kendall, do you? Kendall was the skipper, and what a fantastic effort by Cat Wincher, who was mentioned, was found on Gumtree, and Bill Barry Cotter, the founder of Riviera, Mariner and Maritimo luxury motorboats. It's a famous boating family, and Kendall has just completed his 11th Rolex Sydney Hobart. Boy, they had some people on board. Michael Spees, his 43rd. I bet he didn't do that on board. Robert Case has just completed his 35th. And they also had Scotty Kaufman, the Olympian. So just a fantastic achievement by Cat Wincher. First in the Veterans Division, and it goes to Philip Rowe. Tim Gadsby. I've just been corrected. Of course, it's File Pro. Sorry about that to all the locals. The former Cuckoo's Nest and winner on IMS in 1993, so a very famous boat, and Tim Gadsby representing the Bellerive Yacht Club. And they're here in force. So the crew here, where are the File Pro crew? Give us a wave. Third in the Grand Veterans Division, the CYCA Trophy, and again another very famous yacht, Kealoha 2, Patrick Broughton. Kealoha came to Australia in 1971 and with American skipper Jim Kilroy took line honours in the Rolex Sydney Hobart.
You got the other owner, Keith.
Oh, we've got the other owner, have we? Keith. So Patrick and co-owner Keith, built in 1964. Well done to Kealoha 2. Keith Broughton completing his 5th Rolex Sydney Hobart. Well done, Keith. Thank you very much then to Matthew Johnson, and I'll now call on our Premier, the Honourable Will Hodgman, MP, Premier of Tasmania, and before we have a presentation of the next round of trophies, I know the Premier wants to say a few words. Please welcome Premier of Tasmania, the Honourable Will Hodgman.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I also pay respect to the traditional and original owners of this land, the Muhinina people, who are the custodians of this land and the seas that surround us and upon which we race. Her Excellency Professor the Honourable Kate Warner and Mr Warner, Lord Mayor Councillor Anna Reynolds, Minister Richard Colbeck, to retiring Commodores Paul Billingham and Tracey Mathews. Thank you for your extraordinary leadership, not only for your respective clubs but for this race. To Patrick Boutillier from Rolex Australia and sailors of the Rolex Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race. Tasmania was a very different place 75 years ago when Rani won that first race. You had to sail just to get from one side of the River Derwent to the other. Horse-drawn cabs were still operating in Hobart. Enid Lyons from northwest Tasmania became the first woman to be elected to the Australian Parliament. And Tasmania's Premier resigned to face charges of bribery and corruption, creating considerable political turmoil. Very different times indeed. But today, Tasmania's economy is for the first time ever the best performing in the country, and our island state is now a very cool place to be. In fact, we have the cleanest air in the world for any populated place on the planet. We've been awarded the best private museum in the world, some of the best wines, whiskies, bushwalks, bike rides and golf courses, and some of the best sailors in the world, or so they tell me. And over the last 75 years, the great race that finishes here in our beautiful harbour capital has become one of the nation's iconic events and one of the world's toughest sporting challenges. The Tasmanian Government is indeed a proud supporter of the race through various agencies, including Tourism Tasmania, Events Tasmania and through TasPorts. And we thank all race supporters, but especially the makers of the finest watches in the world, Rolex, for their valued continued sponsorship. And two of the greatest yacht clubs in the world, the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia and finishing partner, the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania. To their staff, to many volunteers, for their excellent stewardship in administering the race that so many of us enjoy, we thank you for making it happen. And finally, to all those who sail in it and those that support them in what is, without doubt, the greatest ocean race in the world, congratulations to you all, and I wish you the very best of New Year's. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. We'll now present the next round of trophies. And firstly, we'd love to acknowledge two 25 race achievements and the medallions to be awarded to Robbie Naismith and Matt Shillington, both from Wild Oats 11. They're not with us today, so again I'd ask Dave Kellett please to come forward. But Robbie Naismith, the first New Zealander to achieve 25 Rolex Sydney Hobarts, and Matt Shillington. Both of those guys have been part of the Wild Oats 11 campaigns since the boat was launched in 2005, so apart from their America's Cup achievements, they've won 9 line owners and 2 overall handicap prizes. So congratulations, 25 race medallions to Robbie Naismith and Matt Shillington. First in ORCI Division 4 and first in ORC Division 5 goes to Patriot Jason Close. Patriot representing the Sandringham Yacht Club in Melbourne, and that's a very worthy return after they broke their rudder last year. He's got a smile on his face this time. Well done, Jason Close and Patriot. 2 trophies in Divisions 4 and 5. Third in IRC Division 6 and second in ORCI Division 5, Ocean Crusaders John Warlow from the Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron. The lovely Beneteau first 40.7, and they had a very famous sailor in the crew, didn't you, John? Wendy Tuck, the celebrated round-the-world sailor, completed her 13th Rolex Sydney Hobart. Well done, John, and Ocean Crusaders from the Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron. Second in ORCI Division 4, first small boat across the line, and second IRC Division 6, and it goes to Mistral Pierre Gall. .34-footer, launched only last year, and a lot of America's Cup and World Champions on board, so no surprise that they've done so well, taking 3 trophies. Congratulations to skipper Pierre Gall and all of those French sailors who've absolutely nailed it in the milestone race. What an achievement for Mistral and Pierre Gall. Second in ORCI Division 3, Black Sheep, Matthew Pilkington, and also co-skipper Rob Goulet from the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania. And this was a very interesting crew because they were mainly young dads. So all with littlies back home, and congratulations to Matt Pilkington and Rob Goulet from the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania. A popular result, second ORCI Division 3, Black Sheep Well done in 2019. Second in IRC Division 3, and it goes to Snowdome, Occasional Course Language 2, Warwick Sherman. Also known as the Shermanator. And boy, did he have a fantastic battle royale with St Jude, all the way down the Tasmanian coast, through Storm Bay to the finishing line. I think there were only minutes in it. But second in IRC Division 3 for Snowdome, Occasional Course Language 2, the Curve 43, which won Division 2 in your debut year in 2012. Well done, Warwick. First in ORCI Division 3, second in IRC Division 5, and it goes to Sail Exchange, Carl Crawford and Tim Hawkins. Tim the skipper, Carl the navigator. Carl completing his 34th Sydney Hobart as navigator. And Hugh Brady also on board, 29 Sydney Hobarts. So first in ORCI Division 3, second in IRC Division 5, Sail Exchange, the Cookson 12, from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, Carl Crawford and Tim Hawkins. First in IRC Division 2, it's the Peter Alsop Memorial Trophy and Replica and the CYC Trophy, and it's the JV 62 Chinese Whisper from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, David Griffith. David completing his 7th Rolex Sydney Hobart, again just a brilliant crew as well. Michael Coxon, his 31st, Stacey Jackson, who had the all-female crew last year, who absolutely nailed it in the overall prize. Stacey completing her 13th, and Australia's most celebrated and most decorated female yachtswoman, the navigator Adrian Carlin, completing her 28th Rolex Sydney Hobart for David Griffith, and Chinese Whisper. Sam Hunt also made it Rolex Sydney Hobart number 26. First in IRC Division 3 and second in ORC Division 2, the RORC Trophy and Replica and 2 other CYC trophies goes to St Jude, the Vice Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, Noel Cornish. Well done, Noel, who completed his 13th Rolex Sydney Hobart this year. He won Division 2 last year, so great consistency there. St Jude and Noel Cornish, the Vice Commodore, and the incoming Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. Peter Messenger was also on board, a famous name, his 30th Sydney Hobart, and also Stu Holdsworth completed his 20th Rolex Sydney Hobart. So thank you very much then, Premier. We've completed that round of trophies, and now we move on to the next batch, and I'd like to call on the Lord Mayor of Hobart now, Councillor Anna Reynolds, as we keep going. We're certainly whittling down these trophies, and the first one for yacht travelling from the furthest port to compete in this year's race. This is the Polish Trophy and Plaque, and it goes to Kaylin Lomhara, Lawrence and Charlene Green. Representing the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, they've travelled 53,000 nautical miles, and they're circumnavigating the globe, and they must be still circumnavigating. They've taken off again because Dave Kellett is going to come forward and accept on behalf of Lawrence and Charlene Green. Kaylin Lomhara is their home. They live on board, and they have taken the prize for travelling the furthest to compete in the milestone race. The first armed services yacht on corrected time. And as we know, there was a real grudge match going on between Gun Runner from the Army and also Navy 1. But the first armed services yacht on corrected time, and remember, Gun Runner is still out there, so still wanting to finish. So still has a chance of winning first yacht under 9.5 metres, the Army, so don't despair. But first, on corrected time, Armed Services Yacht, the Ogden Cup and Plate goes to Navy 1, Nathan Lockhart. A Beneteau First 40, representing Ranza in Sydney, Nathan Lockhart and his 10-strong crew, all competing in the Rolex Sydney Hobart for the first time. Navy 1, in recent years, has been used as a sail training vessel in Jervis Bay. But first Armed Services Yacht on corrected time, the Navy won the day over the Army. Well done. Third ORCI Division 3, second IRC Division 4, and it goes to 2 Unlimited, Greg Prescott. Representing the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania. Greg completing his 29th Rolex Sydney Hobart. Son Lockie, 18 years of age, qualified for his first race. Drew Menke also completing 21st. And they too broke a rudder off the Tasmanian coast last year. So winners are grinners this time. 2 trophies for 2 Unlimited and Greg Prescott. Third IRC Division 4, the CYCA trophy goes to Team Runaway, Joanna Breen and David Applin. Both owners and both competing in their first Hobart and representing the Derwent Sailing Squadron. Team Runaway was built in Melbourne, or built in Australia for the Melbourne Osaka race way back in 2003. So it's a very well-travelled boat, and with the double-handed elements coming into the race next year, Team Runaway is going to come into its own. Joanna Breen and David Applin from Team Runaway and the Derwent Sailing Squadron in Hobart. Third in IRC Division 3, third in ORCI Division 2, and it's Bounty Brassware, Our Rush, Drew Carruthers. Again, from the Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron, the former Decadence, the 46-footer, and Drew, of course, outstanding multi-hull skipper, taking all sorts of races and records with his catamaran Rush Hour, but on Bounty Brassware, Our Rush, Drew Carruthers has taken 2 trophies, third IRC Division 3, third ORCI Division 2 for the Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron. First IRC Division 4, the Sir Arthur Warner Trophy and Replica, and the CYC Trophy goes to Enterprise, Anthony Kirk. Anthony completing his second Rolex Sydney Hobart. He was the CYCA's 2018 Rookie of the Year. That was last year, but this year he's finished first in IRC Division 4. And this boat finished 13th on handicap last year. And representing the Fremantle Sailing Club, the Far 40. And boy, did they have a group of supporters cheering them on when they came into Constitution Dock. I think the biggest cheers of all when Enterprise came in for Anthony Kirk. So lots of family and friends there to welcome you in. So thank you very much, Councillor Anna Reynolds. And I'd now like to call on Mr. Paul Billingham, who is, of course, we all know, the Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, a very proud Commodore, a very busy Commodore. He hasn't had much sleep, but it has been a fantastic achievement for both clubs. Paul.
Thank you, Gordon. Welcome, skippers, crew, supporters. The challenge of speaking almost last is all my material has been used, not least by an incredibly knowledgeable and enthusiastic governor. Thank you so much once again for your wonderful summary of the last 4 or 5 days of racing. I have found out, Gordon, where Kylie Lamar is. She's 35 miles up the Derwent, still waiting to finich, so their excuse for not being here. In terms of thinking about what to talk about, for me, the lasting memory of this race, and perhaps the other races I've been involved with, is the diversity and the stories that lie behind the yachts that are here. You've heard a couple of them today, the story of Cat Wincher and our first Indigenous crew. But the fact that we have such a broad array of boats this year, from some of the smallest and oldest through some of the most modern, it really is testimony to the enduring appeal of this particular race. And also I wanted to pay tribute to the preparation. To lose only 3 boats, touch wood, out of 157, I think is unprecedented in the history of this race. Has such a low percentage of loss. Okay, we didn't have the major storms, but it's still tough on boats, it's tough on people. So I want to congratulate you as crews, skippers and owners for the work you put in preparation. It makes our job so much easier. There are some other wonderful stories that we should touch upon. And firstly, the first Indigenous crew we've mentioned, Wayne Jones and Tribal Warrior. But we also had our first Indigenous owner skipper in Rebecca Connor with Wonderland, which is due in later this afternoon. She's 17 miles at the Derwent, coming down, which again is something perhaps we couldn't have thought about many, many years ago. Many of our boats are sailing as groups of friends or as families. And one that stuck out to us this morning, was the story of Lexi. I'm not sure if anybody from Lexi here? No? Well, Lexi was skippered this year by Ryan Cush, and he was sailing for the first time with his father and a bunch of his crewmates who sailed in the 50th race in 1994. They've come back to sail, father and son. There's a lot of stories like that throughout our fleet. And then also, when it came to selecting those people who had asked to start the race this year, who are the people we should select? And there's a huge array of very eligible people that we'd like to ask to start the race each year. Our third place, or our third person to start at the 10-minute gun was Jim Burke, who was the line honours winner on the boat Crusade some 50 years ago. And then we're very grateful to have Tony Cable and David Kellett, who fired the 5-minute gun and the start gun respectively. There are no bigger names in this race than David Kellett and Tony Cable. And to have them firing the gun was just incredible. And just as quickly put them in a rib to get them on board the JBW to follow you all down was even more spectacular. I look forward to hearing the story tonight, David. But that for us is what this race is all about. It's people putting in a way that matters to them, in a way that is significant for them and their families. Many of the thanks have already been given, but it would be remiss of me not to recognise a number of people, specifically and by name. So do indulge me for a minute or so while I list out the people who have made this race such a success. Firstly, my own team at the CYCA, Eddie Moore, Amanda Brody and Fiona Cole, have been working behind the scenes for a year. Eddie in particular came on board as our CEO this year and picked up, I guess, other people's plans and has made them happen so wonderfully. In our sailing office, the work that Justine, Tara Blackron-Moss and her team have done throughout the year, the amount of feedback you guys have given me about the positive attitude and nothing is too much of a problem for those guys has been exceptional. We're very proud to have that fantastic team available. Our media team, led by Nick Jansen, Di Pearson, Nicole Brown, Rupert Guinness, Olivia Price and Hamish Hardy, have lifted the coverage of this year's race to new heights. Over 250,000 people watched the line honours finish on the live broadcast, and the amount and the variety of information coming out, both live action, written and otherwise, it's just been fantastic. It really is a new level. Our race committee, David Jordan, race committee chair, and the extensive race committee, again, a wonderful job. And in the days leading up to this race, the amount of work that we put in, we were working on Christmas morning, myself, David and Martin James, with Justine, to work out what would happen if Boxing Day saw Sydney Harbor, as it did for the big boat race, blanketed in smoke. How would we possibly start? You saw how manic Boxing Day is in Sydney. How could we start a race when we couldn't see? Our international jury team, which thankfully only had one job to do, led by David Tillett. Thank you, David, for your work as well. It's good to keep you guys quiet. Again, the JBW, Andrew State Copley, who brings down John Winning's beautiful boat each year, and the radio relay vessel team, led by, again, David Kellett. I know the voice of comfort on the radio to you all. And this year, backed up by Young Endeavour, with previous race committee chair Tim Gox on the radio, meant that we had extra double coverage throughout the race. Our sponsors, Rolex, represented by Patrick Battaglia, but also this year we had Laurent Delaney out, the head of global sponsorships for Rolex, for his first time to see what we do here. I think he went away happy, Patrick, and certainly it's great that we're able to impress such an organisation both here in Tasmania and in Sydney. Our other sponsors, the Audi Centre Sydney, this is the last race of the Audi Blue Water Points Score, and so those announcements will be coming shortly. Winning Appliances, Janus at Sea, Tourism and Events Tasmania, agencies of Wales Government, the New South Wales Government, represented by the Roads and Maritime Service, the logistics of closing Sydney Harbour on Boxing Day. Over 50 maritime and water police vessels out there manning the exclusion zone. And our new sponsors, Ponant. The Ponant wonderful vessel La Perouse is here. Ponant sponsored the Sydney Namur race. So here's a plug. We were trying to convince some drunken skippers last night to enter the Ponant Sydney Namur race. Several said, yes, I shall hold you to that tomorrow. Moving on to Tracey, and as you mentioned, Daryl, and in particular Biddy from the RYCT team. It has been a weekly, monthly cooperation, and there is no way that we can actually only run half the race. We rely upon them to finish the way they do. And the work that Mick Hocking has done and his team in parking you all was the biggest logistical challenge we faced. I guess we were banking on a few less making it, Tracey, but nevertheless, you've all been found berths. And also to Peter and Judy Martin. Everybody knows Big Peter in the village. The volunteers were briefed on the 27th, and they have worked so hard. The fact that you're arriving in groups of 10 or 20 didn't make it very easy for them, but they're out there with the beer, with the mementos, and getting the trackers, enthusiastic and helpful to the end. Finally, I'd like to thank my board. We had 3 of our directors sailing with distinction this year with Noel Cornish, Sam Haynes and Brad Kellett. Very proud that CYCA directors can lead out from the front and win and take wonderful accolades in this race. But also the rest of us, like myself, Janie Treleaven, Arthur Lane, the underclothes, Justin Atkinson and David Jacobs. We're really grateful for that board and the work it's putting together. Now, as I mentioned, this is the 75th year of the CYCA and the 75th race. We set out jointly with Tracey to make this race not just something we'd all remember, but a fitting culmination of 75 years of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. I'm very proud of what the club was, what it is today, and what it's to become. And as several people have mentioned, this is my last year. I think I've been fired about 3 times so far this presentation, Gordon. And I shall miss coming down. I've been coming down for 6 years as we've tried to reimagine the start and the finish of the race. I shall regret that. But I want to thank my wife, Jude, and my daughter Maya for putting up with my own interests and agreeing to come down. I've promised them a skiing holiday next year, so I won't be seeing you. But with that, I'd like to hand back to Gordon, wish you all good luck for the return voyages, a happy new year, and thank you once again for your wonderful support. Thank you.
Thank you, Commodore. Just before we hand out the next round of prizes, just alert you to this wonderful gesture by Tasmanian Tourism. Every competitor in the race, some 1,800 competitors, will receive this little replica trophy. It's celery top pine, hydro wood from Tasmania, and brilliantly designed and signifying the rugged wild and rewarding Tasmania, rewarding effort. So it's a wonderful little replica, and every competitor in this year's race will receive that. Second in IRC Division 2, the CYCA trophy goes to No Limits. The skipper, David Goetz, can't be with us, but very appropriately, one of the crew, Tony Ace Ellis, will accept the trophy, having just completed his 52nd Rolex Sydney Hobart, which is a new record in the 75-year history of the race. Tony Ace Ellis, what a performance. Fantastic. Long-time sailing partner with the great Sid Fisher, and Tony in his 52nd Rolex Sydney Hobart on No Limit, the near sister ship to Loki, another well-performed Sydney Hobart yacht. So representing the skipper, David Goetz, well done, Ace. 52 Hobarts, wow. Third IRC Division 2, the CYCA trophy. It's the Maverick 49, Quentin Stewart. And Carl Crawford's going to accept for Quentin. This is the RORC representative from the United Kingdom, the Maverick 49. They had some Olympians on board, and also David and Lockie Gilmore, the Olympic 49er sailors. So a top crew, and they did exceptionally well to finish third in IRC Division 2, and thanks to Carl Crawford. First in ORCI Division 2, the Tasports Trophy, and it goes to Dagway 3, Frederic Pouzin, the former Patrice, owned by Tony Kirby, but with this French crew, including Sam Goodchild, the outstanding short-handed sailor. They have been successful, and David Kellett you are going to receive another trophy. Aren't you lucky? So a great effort there by Dagway 3. And they had a couple of Olympic sailors on board, Nicolas Troussel and Thomas Rouxel. So it was a brilliant crew, and they finished first in ORCI Division 2, the Tasports Trophy going to the Dagway 3 team. Third IRC overall, third IRC Division 1, the RYCT Trophy and Replica, the Storm Bay Cup and Replica, and the CYCA Trophy. And another famous boat, it goes to Quest, Bob Steele and Craig Neal. The TP52, what a competitive race within a race it was for the TP52's. Quest pushing all of those other competitors so hard all the way, and Quest, of course, has won the race as the former Quest, and then Balance for Paul Clitheroe, and Mike Green, of course, on board the Sailing Master, has just completed his 41st Rolex Sydney Hobart. Congratulations to Bob Steele and Craig Neal with Quest. Third in IRC overall, third on handicap against all comers, and third in IRC Division 1. Second IRC Division 0, the CYCA Trophy, and it goes to Naval Group Sean Langman. And Diane Roy will accept the trophy on behalf of Sean. Naval Group representing the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. Son Peter was on board, completing his 7th. And Sean, who's a partner with the CYCA, and he, of course, is the sponsor of the Sydney Gold Coast race, the Noakes Sydney Gold Coast race. The managing director of the Noakes Group has just completed his 29th Rolex Sydney Hobart. So thank you to Diane Roy. Second IRC Division 0. And now third ORCI Division 1, the CYC Trophy. Second in IRC Division 1. Second in IRC overall, the City of Hobart Trophy and Replica, the Bass Strait Cup and Replica, the Solo Trophy and Replica, and the CYCA Trophy. And it goes to Guelo, Matthew Donald and Chris Townsend from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. I can see some fist pumps there, and why not? They've got a bag of trophies. 6 in all. The two owners, Matthew Donald and Chris Townsend. The skipper was Wade Morgan, completing his 16th. A very experienced crew. Julian Freeman, 31st race. Peter Merrington, his 24th. Nicholas Partridge, his 22nd. Guelo finishing 2nd on IRC overall, behind the winner on IRC. The TP52 Guelo from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, Matthew Donald and Chris Townsend. Sensational performance. First in the Southern Cross Cup, the CYCA Trophy, and it goes to Australia Yellow, Ichiban, Guelo and St Jude. So Matt Allen, Noel Cornish, and Guelo to come back and receive the Southern Cross Cup, which has been reinvigorated. It was very competitive, but very hard to beat those 3 boats, Ichiban, Guelo and St Jude. Australia Yellow winning the Southern Cross Cup. And now a very special award. This is the Meritorious Service Award. It's a plaque, and it goes to 2 men who've given virtually half their lifetime, not only to the sport, but to the Rolex Sydney Hobart. I refer to the long-standing race director, Timothy Cox, and the long-standing member of the international jury, Anthony Mooney. Would they please come forward to receive their Meritorious Service Awards? Massive commitment to this race. Tim Cox and Anthony Mooney. And I have to say, about 45 years ago, Tony Mooney took me out on Sydney Hobart and was showing me all the ropes about sailing and actually got me started. He's still shaking his head. He hasn't made much improvement. Well done, Tony Mooney and Timothy Cox. Thank you very much, Commodore Billingham. And I now like to call on the General Manager of Rolex Australia, Patrick Boutellier, who's going to make a short address on behalf of the major sponsor. Please welcome Patrick Boutellier.
Thank you, Gordon. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's an absolute pleasure, obviously, again, to be standing here in front of you all. And I would like to congratulate everybody involved in this fantastic race. It's obviously an absolute pleasure for me and for Rolex, our 8,000 people around the world, to be part of this fantastic race that we are involved since 2002. And I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity as well to congratulate the two Commodores, Commodore Billingham and Commodore Mathews, for the impeccable organization of this year's edition. To be involved in this race is the jewel in the crown of our events that we are supporting around the world. And for me to be standing here now the 10th time is a great honor and privilege. The 75th edition, I think it's something that we can all be proud of. And I'm already looking forward to be standing here again next year. But in between, I wish you all a fantastic 2020 and have a great celebration tonight. Stay safe, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Sydney in the harbour on Boxing Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. So, the Navigator of the first Tasmanian yacht on corrected time, it's the City of Hobart Trophy and Plaque, and it goes to Alive's Andrew Cape. Andrew navigated InfoTrack last year, a naval architect by qualification, but he's a full-time navigator, believe you me, one of the very best in the world. A computer navigation supremo, round-the-world races, and successful in all of the major classics around the globe. Congratulations, Andrew Cape, navigator of the first Tasmanian yacht on corrected time. The first Tasmanian Yacht IRC, the Tasports Trophy, the first ORCI Division 1 Charleston Trophy, the first IRC Division 0, the Rushcutter Trophy and Replica Trophy, and again it goes to Alive Philip Turner. And Alive, of course, took the overall prize last year. I think that, is that Duncan Hine? Yes, it is. And Luke Watkins, the boat captain. So congratulations. You went very close. You were the clubhouse leader there for a while on the overall prize for the J.H. Illingworth Trophy. But Alive again, very much to the fore, winning 3 trophies. First Tasmanian Yacht IRC, first ORCI Division 1 and first IRC Division 0. Congratulations, Alive, to Duncan and also Luke. And now the designer of the winning yacht, Alan Payne Memorial Trophy and Replica, and it goes to Ichiban Boat and Design, the Boatin 52, built just out of Valencia in Spain, and an amazing yacht indeed. Matt Allen to come up and receive the designer prize for Ichiban. And Matt, don't go too far because you'll be coming back. The Navigator of the winning yacht, the Bill Owen Memorial Trophy and Replica, and it goes to Ichiban Will Oxley. And what an amazing year it's been for Will Oxley. He's won nearly a dozen significant and major races right around the globe in 2019, including the Fastnet race and also the Transatlantic in Wizard on handicap, and now getting this magnificent effort on Ichiban to take the overall handicap prize. Will Oxley, probably the foremost premier ocean racing navigator in the world at this very moment. Now the first yacht under 18.5 metres across the finishing line. The first IRC Division 1, it's the Apollo Trophy and half model, the George Barton Trophy and replica, and the CYC Trophy. Second in ORCI Division 1, the CYC Trophy. And first IRC overall, the Tattersall Cup and replica, the CYCA Trophy, the RORC Plaque and replica, the Government of Tasmania Trophy and replica, and the Rolex Yachtmaster timepiece, Ichiban Matt Allen. And I think Matt's going to bring his crew up here as well. Why not? Give them a big round of applause. A second victory in 2 years. Congratulations, Matt, and the crew. Absolutely outstanding, Ichiban. As Matt said, this is the best crew he's ever raced with. The boys have been celebrating for more than 2 days now, but they're holding up pretty well, I must say. And now the presentation of the Rolex Yachtmaster timepiece by the General Manager of Rolex, Patrick Boutelier, to Matt Allen. What a moment to savour. No boat in the history of the Rolex Sydney Hobart has achieved what Ichiban has. 5 wins from 5 in the Blue Water Classic last year and 4 wins and a second in the Blue Water Classic this year. 9 wins from 10. Absolutely incredible. Congratulations, Matt, and I know you'd love to say a few words of appreciation for what has transpired in this milestone race. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner, Matt Allen.
Thanks very much, Gordon, and I just wanted to say a couple of words. Firstly, to thank my crew. I mean, they did just a terrific job. They're a joy to sail with. We have a great culture on board, and we enjoy every minute sailing together. And when we took the time out to look at how much experience in the Sydney to Hobart race we have, we added it up and we had 195 Sydney to Hobarts between us. But incredibly, we also had 18 round the world races. Not that I count for any of those, but a huge amount of experience amongst the crew. I think I'd like to thank all the other sailors in the race. I mean, when we arrived in Hobart, all the other sailors in the race really gave us the most enormous welcome and congratulations. And it shows something about the sport that we sail in, that the huge amount of respect that we have for each other. And it was a joy for us all to arrive and spend, especially the last few days here in Hobart with you all. I'd really like to congratulate the 2 yacht clubs, the Cruising Yacht Club and the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, on their 75-year partnership. It's a remarkable
partnership to have survived for that period of time. And I think with very much of the help of Rolex, and Patrick, you're a huge part of this, that with the Rolex relationship and the friendship, it has really changed the race significantly over the last, especially 15 or 18 years that Rolex has been involved. And I think we've seen the race really just get better and better this year, and it is a great reflection on the efforts of all the two clubs, the boards, the staff, but especially the volunteers, and the influence that Rolex has had to make this race a truly great race. So congratulations to you all. I would also take just a minute to reflect on the 75-year history of this race. Through the course of the years, we've seen amazing boats come and go. Obviously Rani, Freya, the many ragamuffins, a few Keoloas, Wild Oats, obviously, Quest, Love and War, Challenge, just to name a few. Great boats, amazing pictures and paintings of those boats over the years and imageries, especially the one of, I think, Keoloa from 75, breaking the record that stood for 21 years. But it's actually the people that make this race, not the boats. And it's the sailors, it's the friendships, it's the parties, it's also the friendly competition amongst all the crews that really is what makes this race and ocean racing really what it is. I certainly look back, and my first memories coming down here with Pete Inchbold in 1976 for the first time to watch Ballyhoo come across that finish line. Pete and I were both hooked. We've now both done more than at least 30 races. And it was really that, so many years, so many memories, so many great friendships, so many of our great mates that we've sailed with or had interactions with down here and had a lot of fun. So the race is in the best shape it's ever been, and I'm sure the best days are ahead for the race. Thank you very much and have a wonderful new year.
Thank you very much, Matt. And bearing in mind your sentiments there, and thank you, Patrick, now courtesy of Rolex Australia and Rolex Geneva, let's reflect on some of those thoughts of Matt and also Her Excellency and our Commodores and all of our speakers here today on what has been the milestone race, the 75th Rolex Sydney Hobart. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance, and especially all of the crew. As mentioned by Matt Allen, it's the people involved in the race that make it so special. I'd now like to ask you to be all upstanding as Her Excellency will depart with Mr. Richard Warner and the VIPs. So please, thank you again for your attendance and the wonderful support of Her Excellency the Governor of Tasmania, Professor Tait Warner. The official party will be going over to the race village, and there's just a VIP area that's been cordoned off. So we mere mortals aren't allowed to go there unless you've got an invite. But please use the race village. It'll be open till 5 o'clock tomorrow. So it's a great scene over there, and hopefully we'll see the army boat finishing before New Year's Day. So thank you all. I think we've had a great time. Well done.